Hi folks, I'm Trev and I'm going to teach you how to play the guitar. So I'm going to focus on two chords today, a diminished chord and an augmented chord. So there's mainly four chords. You have major and minor, which everybody knows, and then there is a diminished chord and an augmented chord. They're very simple chords, not many people use them, but all the good artists and good musicians know the chords and they know when and how to use them. You don't use them a lot, but when you do use them and they're used in the right context, they sound quite good. I'm showing you them both together because they kind of both go hand in hand. There's also a little bit of music theory thrown in here as well. So there are 7 notes: C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then C. You also need to remember that E has no sharps and B has no sharps. So you go C, C sharp, D, but with B you just go B, C, and with E you go E, F. So with a major chord you have 4 notes from the first to the second chord, to the second note you play. So if you have C, you're going to go C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E. So C, E are the first 2 notes in C. If you take C minor, there is 3 notes to the second note played in the C minor chord. So you go C, C sharp, D, D sharp. So for C major, you've got C, there's the A string, A sharp, B, C, and then for C major, this is the C major chord. So the second note is E on the D string, D, D sharp, E. So you've got C, E. Sorry, C, E. And then for C minor, as I said, you've got C, C sharp, D, D sharp, and this is the D string. That's D sharp. So your C minor, the second note is D sharp. Your first note is C. So that's C minor. So there are 12 notes in total. If you go C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, F, F sharp, G, G sharp, A sharp, B, C. There are 12 in total. So the good and the simple thing about a diminished chord is if you divide 12 by 3, you get 4. If you divide 12 by 4, you get 3. So if you play any note that has an interval of 3, it's a diminished chord. So for example, if I play, say this one here, you've got D sharp, A, C, and F sharp. That is D sharp diminished, but it's also A diminished, it's also C diminished, and it's also F sharp diminished. And what you can also do is, you can move that up, because as I said, if you divide 12 by 3, you get those 4 notes. But if you move it up 3 again, it's the same chord. If you move it up 3 again, those 3 notes, as long as you're keeping within 3, it's the exact same diminished chord. And so to bring us on to augmented chords, as opposed to having 4 notes, 4 into 12 goes 3 times, you have only 3 notes. So you divide 4 into 12 and you get 3 notes. So those 3 notes have to have an interval of 4 between them. So if your first note is, let's say for example, C, C, C sharp, D, D sharp, E, there's 4, okay? So now you've got C, E, almost sounding like C major, but then from this E, if you go 4 again, 1, 2, 3, 4, you're brought up to G sharp. So, and if you then go from G sharp again, up 4, you come back to C. So your 3 notes, for example, in this specific augmented chord are C, E, and G sharp minor, which incidentally is the same chord that they use at the end of the Bond theme. So that is your, and then what I do then is I just play that last note, which is B string, C, C, so there's your C augmented. And because the 6 on the first strings are E's, and E is in that chord. You can play all them together. And again, if you take that chord, like the diminished chord, you can move this up 4 and it'll be the same chord. So C diminished is the same as E diminished is the same as G sharp diminished. So if I move that up, C, E, G sharp, they're the same chords. So they're a little bit difficult, more difficult to learn versus the major and minor chords, but when you know how to use them right, in specific ways of chord progressions, it sounds good. Okay folks, I hope that helps, and if you have any questions, put them in the comments below.